Hi guys, so I have your notes here. So on your paper it should say ellipse notes, I think, at the top. Okay, so we're gonna do this box first. So this is just reviewing graphing a circle. So go ahead and try that on your own and then write out what the radius and the center are. So I'm gonna give you a second and then I will see if I can go ahead and write this information in for you. I'm gonna give you like an answer key. Okay. So for the first one, you have a center of 0, 0, and then a radius of 4. So you're going to start at 0, 0, obviously, and go down to 4. It's like way harder than I thought. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take my little pen thing and draw this out. So 0, 0, and then go up to 4. I almost did that. That was close. Okay, so there's one circle. Again, this one's 0, 0, and then you're going to go 9 in every direction. So we're reviewing circles because we are talking about ellipses today, but if you can remember all the properties of a circle, then you by definition can do an ellipse. Okay, so that's ellipses. We're going to go ahead and scroll down now. You have like a graphic here. We're going to skip that. That's what all those lines are. You have a table. We're going to skip that. And then we're going to go, let me see if I can delete this. Mine's all shifted around now, but that's okay. Okay, so let's do the first example. So what I want you to notice is that if I ignored this, okay, the top part would look like a circle. So if this were a circle, what would the center be? Any guesses? So the center would still be at 0, 0. So everybody go ahead and mark 0, 0 on your graph. I'll do that now. Okay. So what do these numbers at the bottom mean? It's really easy. What do you know about the numbers 116? Those are both perfect squares, right? So if I square root this side and square root this side, what do those numbers turn into? So you guessed it. They turned into 10 and 4, right? So what can you do with 10 and 4? Well, since you got 10 from the x part of the equation, on the x-axis, you're going to put a point at 10 to the right and 10 to the left. Because the 4 came out of the y part of the equation, you're going to go up 4 on the y-axis. Okay, and then this is honestly probably the hardest part, especially when using a mouse. Yikes, you get the point. Yours might even look similar to that. Okay. So then what do you do with that information? So you should be able to find the center, which we already did. It's at 0, 0. And then you should find something called the vertices. And vertices sounds like vertex from a parabola. And you know that the vertex is like the starting point, right? So if this is my parabola, this would be my vertex. The thing with an ellipse, though, is that you have like a parabola this way, you have a parabola down here, you have a parabola on both sides. So how do you know what the vertices are? It's really simple. If I were to put my hands on either of these dots, which one would stretch out what was a circle the most? So if I put my hand on these two dots and pulled, that's where it's stretching the most, right? The other way to remember it is between like 116 or 10 and 4, which number is bigger? Well, the 10 is bigger, so that means the x values or the points on the x-axis are your vertices. So then you want to tell me exactly where those are located. So this point is at negative 10, 0. And then the other point, this point, is at positive 10, 0. Okay. So then what are these 2 points called? Those are called your co-vertices, because we still consider them part of the vertex, but they did not make as much of an impact, right? It's also the smaller number. So where exactly are those 2 points located? This one is at 0, 4, and this one is at 0, negative 4. Okay, so I want you to understand what we did here. We literally graphed 5 points, the center, and then 4 different vertices. So here I gave you the center and 4 different vertices as answers. Okay, then you need to give me one more piece of information, and that is the foci. So we get that word from the focus. If you remember in a parabola, you had like a directrix, and then you had like a random dot, right? And so this was the focus. If you think about what an ellipse looks like, it's like 2 parabolas connected. So you technically would have 2 different foci. So foci is plural for focus, right? Okay, so again, here's one parabola. And if I put a parabola on the other side, there's a second. But again, it would have 2 different foci. So how do you find that? You find the foci using the equation a squared. I'm going to have to write this weird because I don't think it'll let me do powers anyways. So a squared minus b squared equals c squared. I don't know if you remember, but that little caret thing, this little thing means an exponent. So a squared minus b squared equals c squared. So if 10 and 4 equal a and b, how do you get a squared and b squared? So what is a squared? That would be 100. B squared would be 16. So what I do for this equation is I just take the numbers out of the original equation and subtract them from each other. So you get 100 minus 16 equals c squared. Okay, so then you do the next step. Well, what is 100 minus 16? 84. C squared. How do you get rid of a square? Do you remember? Let me scroll up a little bit. So how do you get rid of the square? You would square root both sides, right? So square root. So now you get 84, square root of 84 equals c. It's really hard to do, to go back and forth. Okay, and then you want to try to take a second and break this down. So the square root of 84 can be broken down into the square root of 4 times the square root of 21. Oops, I got a little excited. Okay, and then how would you rewrite that? You would write that as 2 square root 21, right? But remember the word foci is plural. So how can I make this value represent these 2 focal points without changing the value? If you remember, so this is really good final review, every time you square a square, square root a square, you have to write this. So this value represents your foci. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and scroll. So here's our next 2 problems. Okay. So first thing you need to know, what is the center? So the center is at 0, 0. And then how do you move along the x-axis? So I'm going to cut off the video and then start another one.